Morning. The meeting has started, so people should start coming in.
Great. I'll just give it a couple more minutes, Jasmine, to let people trickle in.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, I think we can go ahead and get started. I just wanted to say good morning to everyone who was on the call. My name is Bob Dorsey. I am the Chief of Staff here at the Department of Small and Local Business Development. And on behalf of Director Suggs Evans, I would just like to say thank you all who were able to join today. Director Suggs Evans is really focused right now on efficiency, transparency, and responsiveness in government. And in terms of efficiency, that is kind of what has been driving a minimum insurance standards working group with the Office of Risk Management, the Office of Contracting and Procurement, and the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. We really wanted to make sure that our local businesses were informed about minimum insurance standards that are required to contract with district government. And in doing so, best equipping them with the tools that they need to be ready for that. So we also wanted to make sure we are being responsive to the local business community, which is what's driving the presentations that we're having this week, including the one today for food services, to ensure that we are hearing feedback from the local business community, particularly our CBEs, who are either contracting with the government or who wish to contract with the government, and getting feedback about concerns you have about minimum insurance standards, challenges you might be facing, and overall questions that you just might have. So with that said, I'd like to thank Robert Preston of ORM for being on the call and presenting those insurance standards today. And I also would like to thank our partners at OCP, including Deputy Director Giles, for being on the call to answer any questions. And again, I would like to reiterate that today I know you might have many questions, but we'd like to focus just on those questions, challenges, and concerns related around the minimum insurance standards. So with that, I will turn it over to Robert.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. I want to thank, of course, DSLBD, and as you mentioned, our partner agencies in this endeavor, the Office of Contracting Procurement, of course, DSLBD, and also the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. And my name, as Bob mentioned, is Robert Preston. I'm the Insurance Program Administrator at the Office of Risk Management. been here for about 8 years plus, and been working in insurance here the entire time. So I've seen some developments, and I've been part of many discussions and trainings over the years with CBEs. And so I'm happy that we're able to bring this to a next stage of transparency and assistance for insurance aspects in DC government contracting. So what I'd like to do is first go through the agenda here. So we're going to talk a little bit about today's goals and objectives. Bob already mentioned a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the background, how we got here today. Then we're going to talk about the minimum insurance standards. And as Bob mentioned, today's webinar's focus is on food services. So if you're with another industry, or you'd like to learn more about another industry, I think we have one more catch-all webinar this afternoon. Otherwise, my understanding is that the previously webinars presented this week are on DSLBD's YouTube channel. Then we'll talk a little bit about next steps and then questions and answers. But if you have a particular question on the short presentation that I have, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand via the Teams function, which is on top of your screen. Otherwise, we'll just open up the verbal questions and answers at the end of the presentation. And again, the goal here today is really to support CBEs to meet insurance requirements in the district government contracts. So that's the goal with the working group that we have going on. And then for today too, that's really what we want to end up with, have a good understanding about. And we do that through, first of all, hearing about your challenges and suggestions that you have for meeting those insurance requirements when contracting with the district. We will also, plan on, in addition to these types of webinars, to do some additional education and provide additional resources to assist CBEs meeting those requirements. And as I mentioned earlier, we really want to promote transparency and consistency, and we'll plan on publishing these insurance standards for various types of contracts. So how we got here today, we really would like to make contracting easier through transparency, and insurance is certainly a topic that has come up many times. And so we really want to hear about your experiences for contracting with the district when it comes to insurance. I also want to mention that these standards are not new. So I mentioned I've been around for with the insurance division here at the Office of Management for about 8 years. And these standards are not different than they were a couple years ago. So I just want to emphasize that. And then there are minimum standards. So they're subject to change based on scope. So if you, for example, do something at a location like a school, there'll be some additional requirements rather than where the limits might increase, or there may be some other tweaks. So just want to make sure that there's a clear understanding that these requirements, although I'll share them with you in terms of minimum standards, they could change depending on the scope of the solicitation. So we talk about insurance, and before I go through the minimum insurance standards for food services, I do want to say that at the Office of Management, we do look at insurance kind of threefold. One is to make sure that we have CBEs that are sustained through claims. So financially sustained for sure, which is why we require the insurance. So as you may know, hopefully you haven't experienced it, but should a claim come in, then the expense can be really high, just in legal fees, response that you have to do, etc. So we want to make sure that if there's a claim, that you're able to survive that claim financially and continue providing the service that we contract our vendors to do. Second one is because we also have a fiduciary responsibility for our taxpayers. And so if there's a claim, we want to make sure that we have a third party we can get the money from. In this case, insurance companies, rather than relying on taxpayer dollars to pay out losses. And the third is we really rely on the insurance companies to vet our vendors through the application process. So as you apply for your insurance, I'm sure you've seen some of the applications can be a little hefty. And that's a way for us to kind of rely on the insurance companies to provide feedback to you in terms of operating procedures and protocols you have or have not in place. And hopefully you get that feedback from your broker and from the insurance companies along the way and make your business better and able to mitigate some of those risks that are associated with your operations. So for food services related contracts, I just want to say that these are the minimum standards. So commercial general liability, auto, if you either have a commercial vehicle or you're using your personal vehicle, we do require that there's some car insurance basically in place. If you have any employees, then in the district, you are required to carry workers' compensation coverage. So employers' liability and workers' compensation go hand in hand. I look at it as kind of the same policy. So those three are pretty standard. We do require an umbrella or excess liability coverage for $5 million. We do require crime coverage, so that's has to do with theft, particularly for food services. As you come on properties, we're also thinking of like cafeterias and some of our agencies where you come. There's access to a lot of different things, and we have experienced some theft in those areas where people have come to our properties. Cyber liability is really the minimal. It's just $1 million. And then sexual abuse molestation, that's applicable if you are required to go to a place that has vulnerable populations. So I mentioned cafeteria, so cafeteria for schools, for example, or if you're delivering food to the elderly or have or some transition housing or those kind of scenarios. So that's when that's required. So that's really just for those scenarios. And so those are kind of what we have for the minimum insurance standards for food service related contracts. So the next steps, basically, we want to publish those minimum insurance requirements. We're thinking about providing additional continuing education about insurance. So this is not that one-time kind of scenario. And if you've been, again, contracting with the district for quite some time, you'll see that we have continually provided education around that at town halls or trainings. And then we want to establish additional resources to assist with obtaining insurance. Being a small business, it can be challenging, but then also when you're a new business, it can be even more challenging to get the right insurance. Trying to find the right broker, for example, who understands your business and also has access to the insurance companies that would give you the best price, if you will, the best premium for your insurance. And so we want to put all that together for you, make it easier for you. So eventually you just have perhaps one place to go to so you can see all the information that you need to do business with the district government and obtaining the right insurance for those contracts. So with that, I really want to open it up. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask away. This is your opportunity to let us know what challenges you're facing with insurance, or if you have any suggestions on how to make that part easier for you. Just while we wait for you to think a little bit, I'll just go to my last slide here, just so you also have an opportunity to see where you can go for questions. For a specific solicitation, we do ask that you go directly to the contracting officer for that solicitation. They're persons best equipped to answer specific questions about the the solicitation and the insurance requirements associated with them. If they don't know the answers, they generally do come to the officer's management for consultation. And we just want to emphasize that this question and answer period for insurance should happen while the solicitation is open. Once it's closed, it is difficult, if not impossible, for us to comment on any issues that you have with those insurance requirements. We do also ask that when you get a solicitation, that you've talked with your broker, hopefully on a consistent basis about what you're going to respond to, but also for any specific solicitations where you might not have the insurance in place that we're asking for. So that way you and your broker can ask those questions during that period. For general contracting questions, the Office of Contracting Procurement does have the Procurement Center for Excellence, customer contact center there. So you can ask them for general contracting insurance questions. So anything that's not specific to a solicitation, I'm happy to respond to that. You can contact us here at the Officer's Management at the listed phone number and email address. And then for general insurance questions, so if you have questions about brokers, etc., in general, you're welcome to call the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking by that listed phone number, or email them there at disb@dc.gov. One agency I didn't list is the Department of Consumer Licensing. The Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection. They're the ones to do business licensing, and they have insurance requirements just for you to do business in the district. I didn't list them because it's a separate conversation that's more about doing business in the district and not about specifically contracting with the district government. So we want to make sure that keep those topics separately. I still don't see any questions in the chat, and perhaps because you're all veterans and you all have great and you know what you're doing, which is great. We are looking for some suggestions as well for how we can help with insurance piece for your contracting with the district. So if you do think of anything, feel free to put it in the chat. Contact us. You obviously have the contact for the Department of Small Labor Business Development, DSLBD. Sorry if I slaughtered that right now. And then if you any other questions, just let us know.
Robert, just in terms of continuity, I know that some of on our other sessions, we've gotten some questions, particularly about the cyber insurance. Could you kind of touch on again, kind of why cyber was parsed out? I believe in the past you said it might have been covered under umbrella and it's no longer covered.
Yeah, so for these particular types of contracts, we're really just asking for $1 million cyber liability. So, and we no longer require it to have an excess or umbrella coverage. Yeah, I can go into details of how insurance markets work on that, but I think just given that it's just in this case, a small portion of the requirements, I think that's the umbrella conversation is probably not that relevant for this. But what Bob was saying, if you're into insurance and you like to understand more about it, and you can talk to your broker about it, is that traditionally we have required that the umbrella coverage go over all liability coverages, including cyber and some other ones. But but the insurance companies in the past few years no longer cover no longer have cyber as an underlying, if you will, or incorporated into the umbrella coverage. And so what you'll see in some other contracts is that we've increased the limits of the cyber liability from $1 to $2 to $3 to $4 to $5 million. That's just to basically restate the requirement in a different format. And furthering down the line to Bob's point is that just make sure you talk with your insurance broker and how to put your insurance together, your insurance program, because each one is, each business is different, each operation is different, and there are different ways to package this together, which is also why I encourage you to ask questions during the solicitation period, in case your insurance doesn't quite match this chart. There are ways of doing it a little differently. Was there anything else, Bob, that you think would be good for this group?
That's all the questions that I had. To the CBEs on the call, that was a great opportunity. Again, if you have any direct feedback, any questions, challenges, concerns, to kind of raise them while you have OCP and ORM on the call as well. But again, as Robert said, if you don't have questions, that's great too. But again, just wanting to make sure that you all know that you have an opportunity here today.
All right, if there's nothing else, then I think we can call it a day, and I wish everybody good luck with your contracting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Robert.
You're welcome. Bye.